to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. And many more, and many more, and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host today, Shantae Charles, and I hope that you've been having a great and wonderful day. It is Wednesday, and we have been reading from two books on Wednesdays. This is the continuation of season 17. If you have been following us, and this is episode 29. We've been reading from two books. One of them is Drama Free, A Guide to Managing Unhealthy Family Relationships. And the one we're reading from today by the same author, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself. And we're probably going to be in this particular chapter, I would say, into February. And I think it's a good chapter to be into. It is romantic relationships. In this particular book, excuse me for one moment, in this particular book, we have covered the following topics. We've covered what are boundaries, the cost of not having healthy boundaries, why don't we have healthy boundaries, 6 types of boundaries, what boundary violations look like, identifying and communicating your boundaries, the blurred lines and making it plain, dealing with trauma and boundaries. What are you doing to honor your boundaries? This is how you do the work of setting boundaries. And we started out with family before we went on our winter break. And now we are back in the next chapter, chapter 11, which is romantic relationships. And this topic is really, really close to my heart. Anybody who knows me or has seen any of my work over the last over 20 years now, knows that I am invested in healthy relationships. I'm invested in the romantic side of relationships. I am a romance novelist. I have a Christian fiction series, although the word Christian right now is very, very tainted. But it wasn't, I would say, 20 years ago when I started writing the series. But I would say it's an inspirational, faith based romance series. And it's centered around Black, Indigenous, and Caribbean people. And the story takes place in Savannah, Georgia, which is one of my favorite cities in the United States. And it centers around love and faith and community. And so when I see the word romantic relationship, I automatically think of my series and how that series over 20 years ago now is still selling. I'm still receiving royalty checks from people who are buying that novel series. That's the power of the written word, the power of language to shape and to help a viewer to see themselves in writing. Um, the ironic part is that even though it's a romance novel series, most of my readers are men. All right. Most of my readers are men. And so I think that's very interesting. A lot of them have read the book. They have utilize some of the techniques in the books. I've gotten messages from men saying, "Hey, I was able to figure out what's happening with my romantic relationships, what's happening with the woman that I'm interested in, just by reading your novels. You gave me a whole another insight into how women think and how women feel and what might be some of the barriers to my relationship with women." I've had men say, "Hey, I utilized this. I took this sort of idea here that you have in your novel and I used it for my proposal and she accepted and we're getting married." So it's always cool to hear those kind of stories come back to me many years later of how something I wrote, something I shared in fiction impacted somebody in a very real way. And I think too, when you talk about reading and you talk about literacy in general, I think that is part of the reason why reading and literacy is getting attacked right now, because life changing ideas, life changing thoughts can happen through the power of reading. I've had people get married on my birthday. I've had people allow me to become godmother to their children, all from the power and the impact of writing, and that impact having an impact on them starting and raising a family. So today's topic, as I said, is very dear to my heart. If you're interested in my books, you can always look me up, Shantae Charles Books, on any platform. I'm on Amazon, I'm in Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million. Wherever books are sold, my books are distributed. So let's get into today's topic. The writer here says, we don't naturally fall into perfect relationships, we create them. Mm-mm. All right. Let's see. Remove. There we go. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt when they're in my comment section, but if they continue on with unnecessary uh, commentary, we just decide to send them on their way. All right, let's take a look at this romantic relationship scenario here. And again, we're reading from Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Malcolm and Nicole had been dating for a year before they decided to move in together. Then, after living together for 2 years, they found themselves constantly arguing about household duties, how much time they spent together, and the future of their relationship. Often during arguments, Malcolm would get so upset that he'd leave the house for hours. And when he returned, he'd spend the next few days giving Nicole the cold shoulder. In our sessions, Nicole cried about their poor communication. She knew that she and Malcolm loved each other deeply, but she couldn't figure out why they argued so much. Meanwhile, Malcolm described Nicole as a nag. Instead of directly saying what she wanted, she was known to hint about her needs in a not so subtle way. This annoyed Malcolm. When irritated, he would ignore her passive aggressive requests. Nicole's most significant issue was that she wanted to be married. She never expected to live with Malcolm for 2 years without at least becoming engaged. She had become resentful, and during arguments, she frequently brought up the marriage issue. Malcolm, on the other hand, wasn't sure if he wanted to be married. It wasn't until they lived together for 6 months that Nicole started to talk about it. Malcolm shrugged off her concerns in a way that never resolved their issues. It was clear that these two needed help getting to the root of their problems and talking through communication issues they commonly faced during disagreements. They thought I would referee their disputes about who was right or who should change. But to their surprise, we talked about the agreements they made with each other early in the relationship. Beyond I love you and you love me, Malcolm and Nicole had never talked about what each considered acceptable behavior in the relationship. Hence, Malcolm walked out during arguments. They hadn't discussed each person's expectations. Yet Nicole wanted to be married while Malcolm was unsure. For 3 years, they existed with unspoken boundaries and anger about violations that were unknown to either of them. It was clear to me from the beginning that the couple had boundary issues in their relationship. Back to the basics. In chapter 1, we talked about the signs that you need healthier boundaries. In this case, Nicole was resentful, and her resentment was starting to make itself known in the couple's daily interactions. Instead of communicating her needs clearly and directly, she often expressed her needs in a passive aggressive way. She'd say, for example, when you get back from your mom's house, I hope you have time to cook dinner like you said you would. If she was assertive, she might say something like, be home by 5 o'clock so you can cook dinner for us, or grab something while you're out. Communicating her need would likely prevent an argument, but instead, she was setting up scenarios that routinely put her in arguments. In chapter 2, we talked about what happens when we don't set boundaries. Nicole was burnt out, so she'd say things like, I'm tired of being the one to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm always considering what Malcolm wants. She felt as though she was giving a lot and getting a little in return. Malcolm wanted peace, and when his peace was disrupted by intense arguments, he set a boundary by leaving the house. In chapter 3, we address what holds people back from setting boundaries. Nicole didn't want to feel guilty for being direct about what she wanted. Also, she feared Malcolm would be unwilling to honor her requests. Since they didn't talk issues through, however, the couple couldn't know if getting married was an option for their relationship. In chapter 6, we detail ways to identify and communicate boundaries. By helping Nicole and Malcolm communicate theirs, we gave the relationship a reasonable chance of continuing on a healthy path. As we talked through their needs, we came to the following conclusions. Nicole's needs. She needed a clear understanding of the future of the relationship with the hope of one day getting married, and she needed domestic support. Malcolm's needs. Improving how issues are identified, addressing them with more meaningful communication instead of explosive disputes. First, I helped Nicole state what she wanted clearly in a way that Malcolm could understand. To her surprise, Malcolm heard her and said he would immediately honor her direct request for more support at home. We spoke about direct ways to ask for assistance, such as, I need your help with X, Y, and Z. Be home by 5 o'clock because I'd like us to have dinner together. I scheduled a date night for us to spend some time together. When they made clear requests, the couple noticed a reduction in the frequency and intensity of their arguments. For the big conversation about marriage, Malcolm admitted to having anxiety about it because of his parents' dysfunctional relationship and other marriages that he was witnessing. They began to talk through issues and barriers, and they compromised with a new set of agreements for their relationship. Relationship agreements. Write this down if you're in a relationship right now. In every relationship, we operate based on an explicit or implicit set of agreements, rules, and boundaries. Based on our agreements, our relationships vary from person to person. In one relationship, we may find ourselves more argumentative, while in others, arguing isn't an acceptable practice at all. It isn't acceptable because at some point, an agreement was made that it would be inappropriate for that relationship. For example, you might have such a spoken or unspoken agreement about this with your boss. Examples of explicit agreements with healthy boundaries. For example, don't raise your voice at me. I want an open relationship where we discuss other partners with each other. I want to meet your needs. Examples of implicit agreement with unhealthy boundaries. You assume that people know how to conduct themselves in a relationship with you. You assume that people will meet your needs without you telling them exactly what those needs are. You assume that people automatically know what your expectations are in the relationship. So instead, let's assume that people know only what you tell them and they honor only what you request and they can't read your mind. Mindful relationship habits. Define what it means to be in a healthy relationship. Assess why you're in the relationship with certain people. Notice your energy while engaging with people. Do what feels right for you. Make peace with not having a relationship that everyone agrees with. Challenge societal norms about what relationships should look like. Discover what makes you happy in your relationships. Honor your feelings by making healthy choices. Setting expectations. Set expectations at any point in your relationship, but the rule is the sooner, the better. If you want to be married, it's essential to know if the person you're dating also wants to be married. If you don't want to have children, it's necessary to know if the person you're dating wants to have children. Now, you can't help if somebody is misleading you or lying or not telling the truth or not being completely honest with you, but you can at least ask the question and you can at least make your own voice heard. From this space of clear knowing, you can create intentional agreements in your relationships that provide clarity. It's fun at the beginning of a relationship, and we often seem easy to please. But the most pleasing thing you can do is be honest with yourself and the person you're choosing to date. Also, to save yourself time and a lot of heartaches, believe people when they say things like, I don't want a serious relationship. Believe them. Or, I don't think I'm the marrying kind or type. Believe them. All my exes said I was crazy. Believe them. Or, I can't see myself with children. Believe them. If you're okay with these statements, you may be equally matched with the person. But if you want the opposite, find someone else who wants the same things. Don't try to pressure them. Don't try to push them to want the same things. Find someone else who wants the same things. Otherwise, you'll spend most of the relationship trying to persuade them to want the same things that you want. Rarely does someone change their mind to appease another person, at least not for long. After a few dates with someone, it's an excellent time to start talking about your expectations. The biggest fear about being honest is that you might scare the people away. But this is true only if they aren't interested in what you present. And to be honest, do you really want them to stay? Therefore, as much as it might hurt your feelings or hurt you, scaring them off is a sign that you're probably mismatched with that person. At the beginning of a relationship, it's vital to know these questions, the answers to them. What is the plan for this relationship? Is it seeking something long term? Is it just for companionship? I don't want to be alone, so that's why I'm in this relationship. Do you have similar values? And what are those values? Have you spelled them out? If you're a person that is not religious at all, have you shared that with that person? Have you shared your expectations around not being encroached upon if you're not a religious person? On the flip side of that, if you are a person of deep faith, have you expressed that to that person? Have you told them what your deal breakers are when it comes to spirituality or non spirituality? Are there any issues that are deal breakers? For me, deal breakers, smoking, drinking, profanity, calling me out of my name, all deal breakers. Now I see so many relationships where people are okay with their partner calling them out of their name, even in arguments. I can't fathom. I can't fathom it. But other people, they're okay with that. How will you handle disputes? How will you handle disputes? Silent treatment, not talking for a period of time, needing a cool off moment. What happens when you get angry? Do you yell? Do you use profanity? Do you throw things? Do you get violent? This is where background checks come into play and are, in fact, necessary for this current climate that we live in. What is acceptable within the relationship? I think both men and women need to do background checks. I think you need to tell the person that you're considering for a long term relationship, hey, I believe in doing background checks. I believe in vetting completely the person that I want to be spending my long term relationship with. What unique rules do you want to implement for the relationship? These days, people consider dating monogamously a unique rule because right now we again have a culture that says, hey, you should be dating around, you should be dating multiple persons at the same time. I remember 10, 20 years ago, that was not a general expectation that if I was in a relationship with somebody that I just had to assume they were dating 3 or 4 or 5 other people at the same time. But we're in a different era. So if you are thinking about getting back into dating, you need to consider that. If you're deep into a relationship where boundaries weren't discussed up front, get clear about your boundaries now. This is the first quarter of 2026. Get clear about them now. Communicate them to your partner. Based on your feelings about specific issues that have come up between you, you'll know what areas that you need limits in. Watch for resentment, burnout, frustration, settling, having an uneasiness about your relationship after you set the terms, and anger. These emotions will guide you directly to where boundaries are needed in your relationships. Poor communication is the leading cause of divorce and breakups. Let's talk about it. The writer says, I've been treating couples as a relationship therapist for 14 years. The number one reason couples seek therapy is to improve their communication. In fact, I would argue that most relationship issues boil down to communication. If you Google books for couples, most of the books will be on this subject. In my years of helping couples, I'm astonished by how often they operate without first discussing the rules of engagement, including what can and can't happen in the relationship. I'm not talking about what has been appropriate in other relationships, but in their current one. What is acceptable and what is unacceptable? Here are some common areas where communication issues arise. Fidelity. Is your relationship monogamous? Was this something that you discussed at the beginning? Now, I have run into some relationships where the person says, "Hey, I got married. We're 3 years in, 5 years in, 7 years in, and we've always been monogamous up until this point. And now my partner wants to change the rules of engagement and they want to no longer be monogamous and they want to open our relationship up. What do I do?" You need to see a therapist and you need to possibly decide if this is a deal breaker. And for some people, it is a deal breaker because for some, that is seen as adultery. It's not seen as, oh, we're having an open relationship. No, it's adultery. If that's not how our relationship began, if there was no communication that my monogamous relationship would now be opened up to multiple partners, that's grounds for divorce. All right. Is your relationship monogamous? What does monogamy mean? What does cheating look like? For some people, cheating is the physical act. For some people, cheating is the physical act. Cheating is financial. Cheating is emotional attachment. So you got to have that discussion. What does cheating look like? What's the consequences if someone cheats? Does that mean that we go to couples therapy? Does that mean immediate filing for divorce? What does that mean in your relationship? Finances. How will you manage your money in the relationship? Who is responsible for paying which bill? What are your short term and long term financial goals? Will you have joint or separate bank and brokerage accounts? Do either or both of you have financial issues? How will you address financial issues if they arise? Three more. Household. Who is responsible for doing which task? How will tasks be divided so that they don't fall on one person? How can you work together to meet the needs of your home? Children. Do you want children? How many children do you want? What is your parenting style, or what do you think it will be? How will you approach disagreements related to your children so that your children don't manipulate both of you into arguing with each other? How will you maintain your relationship with your partner once children arrive? And outside forces. How do you handle issues with your partner's family? What happens when you disagree with how your partner handled an issue? How will you handle other people attempting to interfere in your relationship? Is it okay to talk about your relationship with people outside of the relationship? And if so, whom? How do you protect your relationship from other people's interference or unwanted or unsolicited advice? Not only is it important to communicate more, but it's also important what you communicate about. Having uncomfortable conversations can save your relationship. So be willing to talk about issues before they become a problem. Preventing the common communication mishaps above will save you from many arguments in the future. All right, I am going to stop there for today. I think that's a good place. When we come back, hopefully next week, we'll talk about, oh, we won't be back next week. We'll be back the last week in January. Um, Tomorrow will be my last broadcast for this week. We'll take a station break. I forgot to tell you guys that. And then we'll be back the following week, the last week in January. So when we come back, we'll be talking about assertiveness, minimizing communication, and recurring arguments. How to be assertive in your relationship and not take over and not feel like you are bullying your partner. All right. Let's see if we can chop it up here. Hopefully, hopefully, hopefully. Let's see if I can add you, Pastor Ben. Let's see. Oh, okay. It's saying it's not enabled. Let's try it again. You should receive it either in your inbox or check your spam. And let's see if we can get you added on here. Ta-da! Good morning. Can you see and hear me?
Good morning. I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay,
Testing,
I hear you now.
testing.
I hear you now.
All right. All right, go ahead and share your thoughts on this topic. I know you've got some good things to share. You got some lessons for us.
Well, now I agree with everything you spoke on as far as relationships, uh, how they should be handled, how certain situations should be handled. One of the problems is that people don't sit down and have those discussions at the beginning. That's the biggest problem. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and I was telling them that I'm going to be happy because we were. I don't know how we got on the subject,
Mm-hmm.
but I was telling them I'm going to be happy because I've decided to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody comes along and they don't add to the happiness, I can deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
If they add to it, even better. But if they take away from it, that's a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's about setting boundaries. What are the deal breakers? And it's that simple. And here's the other thing. If you set a boundary, you stick to that boundary. Don't say, oh, you crossed that boundary, then they cross it again. You say, oh, you crossed that boundary, and they cross it again. You say, oh, you crossed that boundary. They're going to keep crossing that boundary
Mm-hmm.
until you put your foot down and put a stop to it. So,
Yeah, so I agree that even in setting the boundary, you also have to decide what's going to be the consequence of that person crossing it.
hmm
Because if you haven't thought that far, like you said, that person can just keep crossing that boundary over and over again too. So even if I'm setting a boundary, my next question should be what's the consequence if that person does not honor it? And then whatever that consequence is, I've communicated that to them so that when or if the boundary is crossed, they already know what the consequence is.
hmm
So they can see my follow through.
hmm
So they can see my follow through.
hmm yes. And that's the thing. When you state the consequences, uh, you have to stick to that. Because if you don't, again, they'll continue to do it over and over and over again. Um, but I also want to talk about dating
Mm-hmm.
because there's different types of dating.
There are.
There's dating where you're just going out and having fun,
Mm-hmm.
or you're trying to get to know each other to decide whether you want to move further.
Mm-hmm. Casual
And then
dating, as
there's
we
the
might call it.
monogamous dating, where okay, we're a couple,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna do this thing together, and you move on from there. All that need to be made clear
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning. And as you said, marriage, all that need to be discussed in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Am I looking for a wife? Am I looking for a husband? No, I want to stay single the rest of my life. As far as marriage, I don't want kids. I want kids. I had an incident. My second wife, she wanted kids. Then after we got married, she didn't want kids. See, and it's like, wait a minute, that's not what was discussed. But I will say this: I'm glad I didn't have any with her. You know, so so but all those things need to be discussed, and you need to know what you want and what you don't want. Because as you said, if that person can't read,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you need to verbalize.
I will say this.
Well, you should know. How am I supposed to know? You didn't
I will
speak it.
say this, and my husband and I have talked about this on our 4-part video of how we met and everything. I did not believe in dating only
hmm
because by the time I was 18, I was kind of done with like dating and the relationship stuff. I had had enough boyfriends
hmm
to know that I didn't want to do dating anymore. Now that should tell you something about me. By the time I was 18, I was like, this is trash. This is trash. What are we doing? Um, and then of course I had my experience with intimate assault, right? So after that point, I knew what I wanted in a relationship, and I had made up my mind that, and I prayed to God, and I said, "Listen, I'm not doing this dating stuff. The person that I meet, I need that to be the person. That's it." I was very clear in my prayer. I don't have time for playing games. I've done the game playing. I've played some games and I've had some games played on me. Okay? I'm keeping it 100. I don't want to play any games. The person that is for me is going to have to really see me.
Mhm.
And so I would do things specifically to dress as unattractive as I possibly could on purpose. I'm that kind of person. Because I said, I don't want you looking at me. And of course, somehow or another, my husband still found a way to look at my kneecaps. I don't, this is our joke between each other. Um, I was like, I don't want anybody looking at certain parts of my body and saying, "Oh, I'm attracted. I'm attracted to the body," but didn't but but didn't pay any attention to me or what I wanted or what I thought or any of that. So I did
Mhm.
things specifically that I was like, if this person sees me, they're gonna have to see past the surface. That was my
Mhm.
tactic. Okay, and so that was that. And then with my husband, we never dated. We went from friendship to making the decision that yes, we're going to go into courtship and engagement.
Hmm. I
So
I've
we
had a
we date all the
conversation.
time now. It's
I've
26
had a
years in.
conversation with young women that were complaining about they were complaining about how guys, how the guys that they attract
Hmm.
and all this stuff. And I would tell them, I said, well, why don't you try dressing down? Why don't you try going without the makeup? Why don't you try you wearing stuff that's not so tight? And then let's see the type of men you attract.
Hmm.
They didn't listen to me.
Well, I'm just gonna say, ladies, if you want it down to the bare bones to see what it is that he actually wants from you, I'm gonna recommend dress it down.
Mhm.
Okay. And here's the other thing: all the women around me were really, really dressing up. They really were. The hair, the nails, the makeup, the style, all of that. I
Mhm.
went the opposite direction. Now, guess which one of those stood out, even though I was trying not to stand out? I'm just saying.
Your knees?
Apparently, my kneecap stood out of everything. I find this out later in life, of course. But most of the time, if you look at what I have on today, I'll probably put a picture up online. I was dressed
Mhm.
very just, you know, studious. We might say studious, right? And some people will say, "Well, you dress kind of homely." I got that a lot. Why are you dressed so homely? Cuz that's how I felt like dressing. Next question. Next question.
Ladies, From a man, let me explain this to you. Let a man see you at your worst. If he sticks, that's a good man. That's probably the man you're looking for. If he sticks, if he sees you at your worst appearance, your worst clothes, if he sees that and he's there, that's likely the one because he's looking beyond what you're wearing. He's looking beyond what your hair looks like. He's seeing you. Now, that said, give him something to look at. When I say he's looking at you, give him great character.
Hmm.
Give him that. Because most men, that's what they want.
And it's very interesting that when I do listen to some of the men that are talking, and they're talking about what drew them to their particular person, a lot of men will say, I know she likes to put on, like I know she likes to get glammed up, but I like her with a plain face. I know she likes to
Hmm.
go all out, but she's most beautiful when she wakes up and I look at her next to me without all of that stuff on. So
Hmm.
it's like, are y'all paying attention, or are y'all listening, or no? Because I often say this not just with men, right, but also with women. Men tend to do certain things for men, for the male gaze, in terms of like some of the workout stuff. I'm like, some of that is just ego. Some of that is just to impress other men. I'm working
Hmm.
out, I'm getting buff, I'm getting swole. We're comparing muscles and biceps. It's like, okay, women are not really looking at that. We really aren't. I know men think we are, but we really aren't. We want to know, do you have a sound mind? We want to know, do you care about women? We want to know, if something happened to us, would you step in the way and get us out of harm's way? That's a lot of the things that women are looking. Do I feel safe in your presence and in
Hmm.
your company? If I took a nap on your couch, could I entrust myself to not feel like you're going to assault me or attack me if I'm by myself in your presence? That's a very
Hmm.
simple check. Am I safe in your presence and in the presence of your friends? With women, okay? A lot of our glam and dress up is to impress each other. Girl, where you get that from? Like, those are, what kind of hair is that? Oh, it's Brazilian hair, number 1, number 2. Like, men aren't, they don't care what kind of hair you got up there. Is it combed? All right. So in that way, a lot of times what we're doing is we're impressing each other. And that's male or female. I feel that way. Um, but when it comes to your intrinsic self, and I'm in a relationship with somebody, I want to know, are you a good person? Are you kind? Are you loving? Are you empathetic? Are you faithful? Are you consistent? Do you look out for other people? Do you show respect and honor and care to elders? Do you treat people that you deem in a lower socioeconomic status well? That's the kind of things that people are looking at. The other stuff is glaze. And sometimes people treat the glaze like that is the end all be all of a person. I look at the what's the shows that everybody be watching now that's on online. The balloon popping. Have you seen some of those clips? Okay, all the
Hmm.
stuff that those people are talking about on those shows is glaze. I don't like him because I don't like his shoes. Really? That's glaze. He could change a shoe, but it's harder to change a nasty personality. That thing goes with you. Stubbornness and stinginess, that's much harder for some people to work themselves through and out of than it is to go and get a different pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So that's the glaze. Final thoughts, Pastor.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, basically what we said is in a relationship, let your boundaries be known, the consequences be known, your feelings be known right from the beginning. And look for authenticity. Look for
Mm-hmm.
that person. Look for who that person is, not what they got, not what they so much look like. Uh, because I got a sister. She got two faces. She got one with the makeup and one without the makeup,
Mm-hmm.
and they almost look like two different people. So you know, listen, see me at my worst, but get to know me, my character, my faithfulness, and all that stuff. To me, that's what matters more than anything. What does John, was it John 7:24, something like that, tells us? Don't judge by the appearance.
Mm-hmm. Judge righteous judgment.
Don't judge by the appearance because appearance can fool you.
Mm-hmm.
I may have all this going on, but where is my heart? What is my character like? Am I showing you a personality which is a mask, or are you really seeing who I am? See, I'm gonna show you who I am. That way, you know whether you want to move on or not,
Mm-hmm.
because I am me. Now, if there are some things that you do, well, you know what? All this is good, but this one thing here, maybe you can tweak that a little bit. I think we're all okay with some growth or
Mm-hmm.
some improvement,
Mm-hmm.
but a complete change to make me who you want me to be, that's a no-no.
As she said, people rarely change for other people. And when they
Hmm.
do, most of the time it does not last. They might change temporarily, but they may revert back to some of their same behaviors and
Hmm.
characteristics. Pastor Ben, this has been great talking with you. Um, I made a joke the other night. I'm not gonna say it aloud because I was like, I don't think they're ready for this kind of jokey joke from me. Um, I'll I'll wait till next segment and play around with it a little bit more before I put it out there. But I want to thank you all for your time and attention. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles, along with Pastor Ben. Thank you for being my co-host as usual and always. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to what?
Darkness, so go
Yes.
out and be light.
All right. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be well, and most importantly, be light. Signing out.